For me, the biggest thing has been remaining authentic into myself, what I will speak on. That's been the number one thing. You know, I speak about whiteness. I talk about power. I talk about privilege, things that many people tend to stay completely away from. And I say, like, this is what
She was very encouraging, very inspiring, and she actually motivated me.
I appreciate the fact that she was so authentic and very personable, and it really made me feel like I could relate to her story.
What I aspire to be? Just the best version of myself.
You are listening to Unleash the Podcast, revolutionizing the way women grow, work, live, and lead. Engaging interviews, insightful book reviews, and timeless gems to aid the modern woman in excelling personally and professionally. Hosted by the multi-passionate Tabitha D. James, Unleash the Podcast not only empowers listeners, but also equips them with applicable action-based resources for daily life. Hey friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Unleash the Podcast. If you listen in real time, this is coming a tad bit tardy. If you don't, doesn't matter. Had to add a little laughter there. For latest updates with Unleash events, visit the link in the show notes so you can figure out what's online, what's been postponed, what you can catch on replay, all those goodies. All right, now that the house notes and stuff are out of the way, we have an engaging interview with social justice educator Jen Fry. So what does it do if you only educate the students, or you only educate the coaches, or you only educate the staff as it relates to anti-racism, social justice, inclusivity, and all of that thereof that goes around those things? Nothing. But if you attack it from an approach of educating the entire system of people and train them on how to see through an anti-racist lens, that's when you're beginning to tackle the race issue. That's when you're beginning to tackle the inclusion. That's when you're beginning to tackle the intersectionality, the diversity, the equity. And that is exactly what Jen Fry does. She has a very unique background, which makes her an awesome person to do this, from her education to her experiences, her time as a collegiate athlete as well as a coach. All of that meshed up together makes her an amazing educator on these topics. So without further ado, I'm going to hit the play button on my insightful and engaging interview with Jen Fry. Catch you later.
Thank you so much for taking time to interview with me and be on the Unleash podcast. I'm super excited. I'm super grateful. And we're going to get straight to it. How about that?
That sounds great.
All right, awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, how were you as a kid, what did you think like your initial path would be? Just kind of walk us down that road, if you will.
Oh, so I was born in Canada and I was raised in Arizona. Played 3 sports in high school. Was always that tomboy kind of running around. I played Pop Warner football when I was like 11 or 12. I went over there and they were like, oh, you could try out for cheerleading. I was like, no, I'm playing football. And they kind of were like, well, go get your mom. My mom came over and was like, she's playing football. So I tried like tennis, but I was like, you can't just hit the ball wherever you want. You guys can keep it in the square. I'm not doing that. So I just was always, I ran track, did volleyball and soccer. So I was always super athletic as a kid. Always mischievous, you know, the kid that was always out till, you know, the sun went down and just running around. I never had an inkling of what I wanted to do in life. I don't even think I thought about it. You know, I've worked with students who are like, I've always wanted to be a teacher, educator, scientist, whatever it is. I never had that idea. I never even thought about college. My mom didn't graduate from high school, first gen, so I never thought about college. I played at JUCO, and she just recruited me. It was like, in my town, was like, hey, you want to come play? I was like, sure. And then after, you know, junior college, it was kind of like going to a 4-year. But I didn't even understand what a bachelor's meant. I didn't understand any of that. And then I was coaching club. My college coach got me involved, and I found out I really enjoyed it. And then kind of the next step was to coach as a GA and get my master's. But I didn't really understand what a master's was. I just got this degree, and now I look back, I'm like, man, I was 23 when I had my master's. That's pretty awesome. But didn't have a clue what that meant. And so I coached college for 15 years, kind of all over the place. I loved it, breathed it until I decided I wanted to work in diversity and inclusion. And then that was when I just decided to quit coaching and jump kind of full steam ahead into diversity and inclusion. So, I never would have had an idea that this was where I'd be right now, that this was my path, this is what I'd be doing. I never in a million years would have thought that.
Wow. That is like super cool. That's really bumping into purpose because it's very interesting though the work you're doing and how that, you know, ties back to not having a thought process and inspiring people through that of like you don't have to always just have an answer as to like what are you doing, and it really speaks numbers to be like, I mean, a first gen high school grad and then going to college and going to grad school and just kind of going through the motions based on things people were supporting you through, but not really knowing what that actually meant. So that kind of goes directly into our next one of, you know, how did Gen 5 Talks come about, and who do you work with, and why is it important to you? You spoke to wanting to do the D&I work, so how did that piece kind of really come about for you?
So, like I said, I was starting to get more involved in diversity and inclusion. I got into some committees at a school I was working at, and I grew up 5 minutes from the Mexican border. I was always on a team with a lot of minority people, so I was never the only one. So I didn't and my mom's white, but I didn't understand what it meant to be the only one, ever. Like, my high school teams were always Latinx, Asian, always, you know, and then college. So I always had that around. And then when I was at school, I just started to realize that that's not everyone's experience. And started to understand what it meant to be a black female. Getting on the committee helped me understand what was not being done, the experiences that my athletes were going through. And I started to just read more, get more involved. And like I said, when I left coaching, I just tried to get every training and just do everything possible with that, because I was understanding it was important, but I also didn't know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. And I started blogging because people are like, we want to hear your voice. So I started blogging. I started becoming the person that people, especially when the Colin Kaepernick kneeling thing occurred, I just was having so many coaches contact me. What do we do? How do we talk to our administration? What do we do with our athletes? And just were I became that go-to person. And I started to realize that race and diversity and inclusion was not being talked about the way I wanted it to. I felt like it was kind of superficial. I don't think I went to many diversity trainings when I was a coach, or if they were, I don't really remember them that good. And so I just didn't hear it being really talked about in explicit terms. And so my friends, I think, were like, well, why don't you look at being a speaker? And I was like, a speaker? I don't even know, like, you get paid for that? And I just literally, like, fell into it. And so I just, you know, somebody said that. I was like, okay, well, let me look at my website. It was just about blogging. I was like, well, if I want somebody to pay me, I need to have a website that looks like people want to spend money on me. So I just kind of changed my website to reflect what I really wanted to do. And I think everything has just been figuring it out as I go of what resonates with people, what people want to hear, what I feel the athletes would like to be told of their story. And so I work with like athletic departments, conference offices, student athletes. I've went to like independent K through 12 schools, just kind of anyone who really wants to hear my voice. And I think that's been the most interesting thing, is that what I wanted to hear as a coach, other people want to hear. And people just, I think, are getting a little tired of this superficial diversity conversation that isn't really talking about identity and in very complex and nuanced ways. That's talking about race and diversity in very nuanced and complex ways. And so I think that is the really cool thing about it. I think that's why it's important, kind of go back to your question, that people want to dig in more, but they don't know what they don't know. And I'm lucky in the sense that I have a college coaching background, 15-year veteran. I was an athlete. I worked in academics, but still worked with athletes. So I kind of have all these experiences that help me be able to understand what's going on within the athletic realm.
Yeah, that's deep. It's great that people are wanting to dig deeper. You hit it on the nail with, you don't know what you don't know, right? And until something kind of brings that to the light where it's like, oh, snap, I have to deal with this, or this is a new challenge, you just kind of don't think about it, especially if you've been in those diverse situations, or situations that were seemingly diverse, but conversations weren't being had. So I segue that into, that's unleashing some powerful greatness there, with having some of those tough conversations, unpacking some deep things, and really digging into just people's thoughts, feelings, perceptions, whatever that might create in the room when these things are talked about. So how do you just remain true to self while continually working through some of those challenges and barriers that I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but that I'm assuming may come up when either having these conversations or saying that you have these conversations?
I think for me, the biggest thing has been remaining authentic into myself, what I will speak on. That's been the number one thing. You know, I speak about whiteness. I talk about power. I talk about privilege, things that many people tend to stay completely away from. And I say, like, this is what I'm going to talk about. I am not going to not talk about it because it's going to make people feel uncomfortable. I am not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. So if you're hiring me, this is who you're hiring. You're hiring somebody that is going to speak very bluntly about it and make people feel very uncomfortable. But if you're not feeling uncomfortable about race, then I just don't think the conversation is happening correctly. And so for me, that's where I stay, is I stay really true in who I am and what I will and will not talk about. And that's why in some respects, I don't really market myself per se. And the reason being is because I don't want people, because I feel like when you're like marketing yourself, and I don't want to say pushing yourself as a speaker, but really trying to get yourself out there, you might be willing to say, okay, well, I'm going to soften my message a little bit, or I might change this wording and that type of thing. And I'm kind of like, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is what my presentation will look like. This is how uncomfortable people will feel like. This is what's going to happen. And I am fully okay if maybe you don't feel like me coming and talking to your program, this is the right time. Like, I'm okay. And I'm very cognizant that some people I've talked to, they're like, Jen, we would love to hire you. We just don't know if it's the right time for our athletic department. Cool. Because when I leave, you have to deal with the repercussions. And I try and be very cognizant of that. But on the flip side, if you hire me, you know this is what the conversation will be like.
Okay. I much respect for that, because I actually went down that road a few years ago when I first started speaking back in 2013. From 14 to 15, when I was like taking certain gigs, there were times where I'd be like, this just isn't it. And I knew it. And I was doing it because I'm already here, right? And I wasn't as clear as to how this was going to go. And I'd be like, I am really kind of altering myself as well as what I want to talk about for this particular crowd. And I knew it, and the feelings around it were a little eerie, and that caused a shift in things also. But I truly do respect you for just staying so firm in that. And despite, the no's, it comes with the territory of like, I'm going to stay true to myself. So super claps and cheers from here in Carolina to you for that. That's like awesome. So in building this business and doing these things, loving the work, I'm sure is a part of you continuing, but what is something else that you would say just inspires you to continually do this work and stay on this path that you're currently trotting?
Just the overwhelming response. The athletes of color that come up to me and they're like, thank you. Thank you for talking about this stuff. Thank you for talking about it in the way that you're talking about it. I've had, it's great when white coaches or staff members or athletes come up and they're like, I had no clue. And now I'm thinking on a deeper level of my identity. I spoke at a seminar a few days ago, and one of the white coaches was like, talking through these definitions and thinking about my identity has changed how I look at certain things now. And so that's the stuff that really keeps me going, is that people want to talk about it. They're just not sure of the words or how to bring it up. And that's kind of what I enjoy, is like helping them walk and talk through that.
That's great. That's awesome. That's great that people are continually reaffirming that the work is needed and that it is not just inspiring but enlightening. Because you already hit it earlier of we don't know what we don't know. And our implicit bias just based on our own situations often kind of blurs our vision to things outside of what we just don't know. So flipping a little bit to let you know, I've been a little snooping on your Instagram. I'll call it market research. I won't call it
Market research. I like that, girl.
research.
Market research.
I'm
Yes.
gonna call it market research. And so I saw on your Instagram that you're doing a decade in Filipino America. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Yep.
And some posts around that. So tell us a little bit more just about this, One Down Media, and this whole project that you have going on there, because I saw a few posts kind of in that wheelhouse. So tell me more.
My goal with Instagram is just to get information out that folks wouldn't normally know where to find or even think about.
Wow.
If you walk through and just talk to 15 people and we're like, hey, what do you know about Filipino culture and singers and actors and all of that? They'd be like, probably what? It's not something that consistently comes to mind. And so my goal is that, because, I talk about black and white, it's the two binaries at the end. It's the two goalposts. And, you're black on one side and white on the other. Everything falls in between. And I also want to talk about everything that falls in between and not leave out people of color that are doing phenomenal things, or disabled people or anything like that. I want to make sure that I am showing off just the whole realm of what's going on in society, trying to show off what amazing things people of different ability have. A few weeks ago I had these posts about people who were disabled and kind of things to think about and how they're being treated. And this one I wanted to talk about, Filipino America and the culture and the great things that they're bringing that we don't even have a clue about. And really just get more people thinking about different cultures, races, and ethnicity on a more consistent basis.
Okay. That's good. That's awesome, because even when I went to look, so I had to spruce up on my snooping because we were supposed to record this a few months ago. When I was looking, I was like, oh, wow. All the facts were ones I did not know. So thanks for tying that in to your why, because it was very enlightening to kind of read through those and be, to spark something in my mind of something that I wouldn't have probably ever known or thought about or paid attention to. So that's really good work and ways of using your platform. So we're going to take it way back now, because in my day-to-day and week-to-week, I do a lot of work, a substantial amount of work with teenagers and confidence building and just goal setting and different other aspects as it relates to teens. And so the big question that I always have for folks is, if you could tell your teenage self anything that you could just go back and in a 30-second spiel tell your teenage self, what would it be?
I saw there was this tweet by, her name is Jessica Masterson. She goes by @MoonGirlMusing. And she tweets something. She says, one of the most revolutionary things you can do as a woman is make peace with the idea of being disliked or even hated. Make peace with people calling you unlikable, shrill, ugly, unkind, because I promise you that people will say whatever they think that will make you shut up. And that resonated with me, because I think to go back to like teenage Jen, I was just I'm weird still, but I was just a weird teenager, just super weird. And I think owning that weirdness, and I remember playing soccer and people would be like, Jen, you're too aggressive. And just having to tone down, and we're playing a sport. And I think just as a girl being like, people are going to not like you, and be completely okay with that. People are going to say things, just ignore it and don't allow that to affect you. And that's what I would tell my teenage self. And so I coach an 18 team right now. And my number one goal with this team is to get them to learn how to advocate for themselves, handle, criticism, and also give criticism. And so just getting them, I don't even want to say a little tougher, but just helping them, be a better teenager, a better woman, because as we know, women don't usually advocate for themselves, or they don't learn for it until they're older. And my goal is helping these 17, 18-year-olds learn how to advocate for themselves, so that when they go to college, when they go to senior year in high school, they are more apt to not maybe put themselves in bad situations because they don't want to say something.
That's deep. That's deep, being able to advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself, despite anyone else's feelings about you at that, too. Because it's none of your business how other people feel about you. That's something I say all the time, because we get wrapped up in, if I do this or I do that, how are they going to feel? But, we we can't help that. We can't help someone's feelings about us. Like that's not our job. Wow. Thanks for this. Very good nuggets drop during this interview. So how can listeners connect to you after this? Where can we find you?
So all my social media handles are Jen Fry Talk. My website is jenfrytalks.com. Literally, if you put Jen Fry Talks into anything, you will find me. I tried to make it kind of as simple as possible, and like I tell people, message me if you have any questions, email me. I want especially young girls, women, if they have questions when they're moving through life, holler at me. I haven't done everything right. I've probably taken some L's, definitely, but if I could help somebody not take as many L's, that would make me happy.
That is awesome. That's a great way to end it. And then I have one more follow-up question. Maybe this is for me or maybe this is for a listener. Can you go back for us and give us the Twitter name of the person you referenced in the statement?
Yep, it is. Let me pull it up. It's Moon Girl Musing. MoonGirlMusing.
Thank you so much. I feel that added some great context, and I want to make sure that it gets in the show notes. So that was awesome. Jen Fry Talks, thanks so much for talking with me. It was amazing, and I am so grateful for the work that you do, the people that you connect with, and the minds that you're able to shift through that work. So thanks a bunch for unleashing that greatness in various corners of the world and just enlightening people about things that are tough to talk about. That's some good stuff.
Well, I appreciate you for having me on here. Thank you so much. Finally connecting after a few months. So I appreciate it.
Right, finally. Thanks so much. Have a great one.
Wow. I told y'all. She is so qualified to be doing the work that she does. Furthermore, let's just give a round of applause for how she unapologetically takes us through what she does, why she does it, and why she's the person to be doing it. Owning all of herself and unleashing greatness in her corner of the world. Psh, what an interview. Before you leave this space, be sure to rate, review, and share the Unleashed podcast so others can be here with us. Until next time, catch you later, friends.